Welcome back to Blacklit Memory. Tonight, I've got 8 Appalachian horror stories told by the ones who lived through them. Or at least, what was left. Freight that shouldn't move. Tunnels that breathe. A child's whisper from an empty roadside. These aren't ghost stories. These are the moments in quiet stretches of mountain road when reality buckles just a little and something else gets through. Each story comes from a driver who thought they knew these roads. Turns out, the road knew them better. Before we begin, go ahead and like, subscribe, and share this with someone who spent a night in a rig with the engine off and something tapping on the cab. And in the comments, tell me what's the one road you'll never drive again. Now lights low, doors locked, eyes on the mirror. Let's begin. My name's Mitch Rayner. I'm 41, born and raised in Clay County, West Virginia, where the hills are steep, the cell signal's weak, and the roads coil like snakes. I've been driving trucks since I was 20. Started with a rusted-out Kenworth my uncle sold me cheap, back when the local mill still gave steady freight. After the layoffs, I took whatever runs I could find: gravel, lumber, sometimes long hauls across the state. I've got no wife, no kids, and no real reason to stay put, which suits me fine. Some folks hate the solitude of the road, but I crave it. There's a quiet out there that makes sense to me. Most nights, I don't stop unless I have to. But there's this one stretch of mountain road, Switchback Pass. Locals call it that always makes me pause. Not because it's dangerous, though it is. It's got 5 tight curves, each carved into the cliffside like a drunk man's signature. No lights, no guardrails, just your brights cutting through the trees and the drop-off below. Still, I always find myself pulling over right before the 3rd curve. I light a cigarette, lean against the bumper, and let the stillness press in. That night was clear, no fog, no wind, just crickets and the hum of the engine cooling. I'd left Charleston late with a flatbed of electrical conduit bound for a hardware depot in Richwood. Route 16 had been empty since Gawley Bridge, and I hadn't seen another pair of headlights in over an hour. I rounded the first curve slow, dipped into the second, and just as I eased toward the 3rd, the one where I usually stop, I saw it. A silver sedan sat parked sideways across the road. No hazard lights, no driver in sight, but its headlights were still on, aimed into the trees. I hit the brakes. Hard. The tires screamed. Gravel kicked up, and the trailer lurched behind me like it wanted to keep going without the cab. I stopped maybe 10 feet from the car, heart pounding. First thought wreck, second trap. I put the rig in park, grabbed my flashlight, and stepped down. The air smelled off, like wet metal and burned rubber, with something sweet underneath rot. Maybe. I approached slow, keeping the beam low. The car's driver door was open, wide like someone got out in a hurry. Inside, the dome light flickered weakly. A purse sat on the passenger seat. Cell phone, keys still in the ignition, engine humming low. I called out, "Hello, anybody hurt?" No answer. I circled the car, shining my light along the ditch, into the woods. That's when I saw it, a thin line of blood smeared across the driver's side window, trailing down to the handle, and beyond that, prints. Bare footprints, leading away from the car and into the trees. Now, I've seen strange things on the road. Dead deer that looked staged, empty cabins with lights on. Once, a man in a raincoat walking the road at midnight without shoes. But this Something about it prickled the back of my neck, like I was standing just a step behind whatever had happened, and whatever had caused it was still close by. I should have gotten back in the truck. I should have called the sheriff's office and waited. But I didn't. I followed the prints. About 20 feet into the woods, I found something hanging from a branch kid's shoes. Little white sneakers, mud-caked and swinging gently in the breeze, tied together by the laces like someone had tossed them there on purpose. That's when I heard it. Not a voice exactly, more like a breath. Close, behind me. I spun around fast, flashlight sweeping trees and brush, catching only the damp gleam of leaves and the long black shadows between them. Nothing moved. No sound but the distant murmur of my truck engine, still idling back on the road. My pulse was hammering in my ears, but I forced myself to take a breath. Just wind, I told myself, just wind through the branches. But that didn't explain the feeling that cold. Tight knot in my chest, like something was watching, holding still, waiting for me to make the next move. I backed out of the woods, slow and steady, never turning my back to the trees. When I reached the car, it was still there. Headlights on, door hanging open. But something had changed. I didn't know what. Not right away. It took me a second to realize the dome light was off. Completely dead. I checked the ignition still running, but the radio was now hissing with static. I swear I didn't touch it. I didn't wait to figure it out. I jogged back to the truck, climbed in, slammed the door, and locked it. I radioed dispatch, no answer. Not even static, just silence. Cell service was shot too, but that was normal for this stretch. I shifted into gear and eased around the car, tires brushing the shoulder. I didn't look back, just kept moving. I didn't stop again until I reached Richwood. The next morning, I called the sheriff's office, gave them the location, described the car. They said a deputy would check it out. A few days later, I followed up. They said the car was gone when they got there. No reports of a missing person matching the description. Nothing about shoes in the trees. I could tell by the tone of the guy on the line he thought I was either lying or seeing things. I started avoiding Switchback after that. Took the longer route through Summersville, even if it meant 2 extra hours. But about 3 weeks later, I had no choice. The usual route was flooded, and a dispatch put me back on Route 16. I told myself it'd be fine. It was just a road. But when I hit that stretch again, the air felt wrong, still, heavy, like walking into a house where someone had just screamed. As I rounded the third curve, the one where I always stopped, I didn't see the car, but something else was there. Hanging from a tree just off the shoulder, those same white sneakers. Clean this time. No mud, no laces, just suspended from a broken branch, like they'd been placed there, waiting. That was months ago. I haven't gone near Switchback since. But sometimes, just sometimes, I still hear it. Not every night, not every trip. But when I'm driving alone, windows down, no radio, just the hum of the tires and the smell of pine. There'll be a whisper, not words exactly, just a sound that curls around your ear like breath. And I swear, it always comes when I pass a certain kind of curve. The kind that feels too quiet. The kind that feels like it's remembering you. I still drive, still haul freight up and down the ridge lines. But I never stop at night anymore. Not even to piss, not even to breathe. Because I learned something out there on the Switchback, something I can't explain, but can't forget. Whatever was in those woods that night didn't want to be found. It wanted to be followed, and I was stupid enough to listen. The road through Beartown State Forest was always tight and winding, the kind of place where even daylight looked dim under all that canopy. I'd never run a job through there before, not until that night in late September, when a dispatcher out of Boone handed me a last-minute haul from an old logging camp north of Bartow. Real remote spot. I didn't ask questions, just saw the pay rate and signed the route sheet. It was supposed to be lumber equipment. Turned out to be 6 sealed crates and a note, no sudden stops. Delivery required before dawn. Name's Caleb, 29, raised out in Caldwell County, North Carolina. Been driving rigs since I was 19, mostly local, sometimes regional if the money was right. I'm not superstitious, not the type who talks about ghosts or haunted roads. My granddad was a preacher and a hunter. He believed in what he could shoot or fix with his hands, and that rubbed off on me. But Beartown had always been the kind of place folks whispered about. Back in high school, we'd dare each other to walk a mile into the woods at night. Nobody ever made it far. The logging camp was like a graveyard. Just empty shacks and rusted machines left to rot. The crates were waiting under a metal awning, already strapped to a pallet. No one in sight. I loaded them up fast. The trailer creaked under the weight more than it should have. Honestly, but the paperwork checked out. By the time I hit the road again, it was past midnight. My route curved straight through Beartown Forest, winding up into the ridges before cutting down toward Elkins. About 10 minutes in, the radio crackled. I didn't think much of it. These roads always played hell with reception, but then it happened again. Loud, sharp, like someone flipping a switch. Then a song started playing, clear as day 10 years ago, on a cold, dark night. My blood went cold. Long Black Veil. An old ballad about a man taking a murder charge to protect his best friend's wife. Thing was, my radio had no antenna. I'd ripped it out months ago after it kept picking up weird frequencies near the mines. I tried switching it off. No response. Turned the volume knob. Nothing. The damn thing was dead except for that song, playing straight through like it had a mind of its own. I laughed at myself, nervous. Shallow, but kept driving. I figured maybe the wiring had finally shorted. No big deal. But when I glanced in the mirror, I thought I saw movement in the back of the trailer. Just a flicker. A shift. I told myself I was being paranoid. Still, I kept glancing back. Every few seconds, I even pulled over once, got out with a flashlight, and checked the seals. Crates were still strapped down. No signs of tampering. But there were these streaks, dark resin, like tree sap running along the inside of the trailer door. Thick and black, sticky even through my gloves. I wiped it off with a rag and tossed it in the ditch. Got back in the cab. Tried to forget it. Then the song started over. Same voice, same guitar, same mournful line about the cold, dark night. Only this time, it was louder, closer, like someone singing just behind the seat. I checked the cab. Nothing. No one. But I swear to God, when I looked at the rear view again, the crates were wet, like they were sweating. I didn't stop again. Not after that. Didn't care if the trailer burned down behind me. I was going to finish that route and never look back. But the feeling didn't leave. It rode with me, like someone else was in the truck. Not sitting, not breathing, just there. And just before dawn, as I crested the ridge outside Elkins, I looked one last time into that mirror. There was a face in the back window, pale, expressionless, watching me. I jerked the wheel, hard, almost sent the whole rig into a ditch. When I glanced again, the face was gone, but the impression of it stuck in my mind like a burned pale skin. Hollow eyes, no mouth, no movement, just still, like it had been waiting for me to notice it. I pulled into the delivery yard outside Elkins a little after 6, just as the sky started to bruise with morning light. I didn't even wait for the receiver. I backed into the dock, dropped the trailer, signed the clipboard without a word, and got the hell out of there. It should have ended there. Should have just been another weird night on the road. But when I got home the next morning, something was off. My brother Mason, who sometimes borrowed my truck for short runs, was standing outside my place, pale as hell, holding the rag I'd thrown in the ditch. It was dry now, but stained black and stiff like it had been soaked in tar. He said he found it rolled up in the bed of my truck. I told him that was impossible. I'd tossed it 40 miles back in Beartown. He didn't say anything, just looked at me and asked, "Caleb, what did you haul?" I didn't have an answer. Still don't. But that night, Mason took my truck for a short job to Marlinton. Simple run, 2 hours max. He never came back. The police found the truck parked just off Route 28 driver door open. Lights still on, no sign of a struggle, no damage, nothing stolen. Mason's phone was in the cup holder. The radio was playing Long Black Veil on loop. Engine off, battery dead. But the music kept going. They searched the woods for a week. No body, no footprints, no blood. Just the same streaks of black resin along the inside of the cab and smeared across the windshield. Like someone or something had been watching from the inside out. After that, no one touched the truck. I had it towed, then scrapped, piece by piece. The mechanic who dismantled it called me late one night, whispering like someone was in the room with him. Said when they cracked open the sealed wall panels, they found tiny bones, dozens of them, like birds or children. I never took another job through Beartown. Never even drove within 10 miles of it. But some nights, usually near the end of a long haul, when I'm tired and the road goes quiet, that same song comes back clear as day, cutting through the static like it never left. I don't touch the dial anymore. I just keep driving. The worst part, the night Mason disappeared. I found something tucked under my windshield wiper the next morning. A torn scrap of delivery paperwork. No names, no address, just a single typed line, smeared but legible. Return expected, no sudden stops. Whatever I hauled out of those woods didn't stay behind, and I don't think it ever will. I was 17 the first time I ever touched a semi's wheel. Uncle Hank let me ride shotgun on one of his nighttime hauls up through the Alleghenies. Back when I thought hauling freight was the coolest thing in the world. We were somewhere past Green Bank when he pulled off to piss and tossed me the keys like it was nothing. Straight road, low gear. Don't overthink it, he said. My hands were shaking the whole mile I drove. But I remember that night clear as anything, fog rolling through the hills. Diesel humming, Hank humming along to a Waylon Jennings tape. He passed 2 years later, left me the rig and a pile of debt. But I never stopped driving. I'm 38 now, still running loads mostly across West Virginia and eastern Kentucky. These mountain roads don't forgive, and I've seen more wrecks than I care to count snow slicks. rock slides, drunks in pickups thinking they can beat a Peterbilt downhill. But I always felt like I knew these roads better than I knew people. They made sense. If something went wrong, it was because you did something wrong. That belief kept me safe for a long time. Then came that job through the old coal corridor up in Mingo County. I'd done the route before Route 52, narrow and steep in places, especially the switchbacks near Delbarton. I was hauling sealed steel drums for a contractor who wouldn't say what was inside. Non-hazardous. They claimed routine disposal. Sure, I didn't ask. You don't ask when the pay's triple normal rate and comes in cash. The trouble started on the third night. I'd parked at a rest pool just past Matawan, surrounded by nothing but trees and black sky. I always slept in the cab, window cracked, pistol under the seat. But sometime around 3 a.m., I woke up to this noise. Tap, tap, tap like fingernails brushing the metal just behind my head. I sat up fast, heart pounding, and looked around. Nothing. Just crickets and a faint smell of rain in the air. I chalked it up to a branch or maybe a raccoon. But in the morning, I saw the scratches, 5 of them, long and thin, down the rear door of the cab, too high for a branch, too straight for an animal. Like someone had dragged fingernails through the dust. Each one spaced just so. I touched them cold and clean, like they'd been made after the dew fell. A chill settled in my gut. I told myself someone was screwing around. Maybe a hitcher or some local kids messing with truckers. Still, I checked the pistol twice that night. The next day, I drove harder, kept the radio off, windows up. Every time I passed a curve, I'd glance in the mirror, half expecting to see someone clinging to the trailer. By the time I reached the drop-off point, a rusted-out facility behind a locked gate, I was running on nerves. I backed the rig into the gravel lot, left the engine idling, and hopped out. The man who met me didn't give a name, just nodded, clipboard in hand, and waved toward the trailer. As I unlatched the rear doors, he froze. "Hold up," he said, stepping closer. He pointed at the steel. More scratches, not just 5, now dozens, thin, deliberate, crossing each other like claw marks. His eyes narrowed, but he didn't say anything else, just signed the form, turned, and walked back into the building. I waited for my copy, but it never came. I got back in the truck and left without looking back. But later that night, while fueling up in Logan, I checked the rear again. The scratches were gone. Completely. Like they'd never been there. But my hand came away dusty, and drawn in that dust, clear as day, was a print. 5 fingers, pressed from inside the trailer. I didn't sleep that night. Just sat in the truck with the dome light on, watching shadows slide across the truck stop lot while rain pelted the windshield. Every so often, I'd step out and circle the trailer with a flashlight, convincing myself there'd be nothing. But around 4 a.m., just as the storm was breaking, I found something. At the very top corner of the rear door, where only someone standing on a ladder could reach, was a faint smear. Oily, black. The same stuff I'd seen before. I ran my finger through it, then wiped it on my jeans before I could even think. My gut told me I'd touched something I shouldn't have. I drove south after sunrise. No route, no job lined up. Just following the main road until the trees thinned out. Thought maybe if I got some distance, I could leave whatever was happening behind. But that evening, parked outside a diner in Grundy. I caught a reflection in the side mirror. Not a person, just movement quick, low to the ground. A flash of something pale darting between two parked cars. I grabbed my pistol and walked the perimeter, shoulders tight, heart thudding like a drum. Nothing. No prints, no animals, no explanation. I finally called the contractor. The number on the manifest rang once, then clicked into silence. Not voicemail, just dead. I called again, this time blocked, same thing. I checked the address on the form, just a county lot. No signage, no business name. I drove back the next day to double check, but there was nothing there. No gate, no building, just an open patch of gravel surrounded by forest. Even the tire tracks were gone. That night, I parked in a motel lot just outside Pikeville. When I got out to stretch, I noticed a piece of paper stuck to the back bumper, held down by dried sap or resin. It wasn't a note, just a page torn from an old maintenance log. But scribbled across the top in shaky handwriting were the words, "Don't drive it at night." Below that, just a list of dates and places, mostly Appalachia, all of them marked off in red pen. I recognized one Del Barton, 2 days before my job. Someone had marked it missing. I didn't know what that meant. Not exactly, but the message was clear enough. Something was wrong with the truck. With that trailer. I thought about getting rid of it, burning it, even. But every time I tried to call the insurance or the buyer to explain, the line would go dead, or I'd get looped into silence. At night, I started hearing things. Not voices, no. Worse, breathing. Just under the floorboards of the cab. Timed with mine, but always a half beat late. Last week, I left the rig parked in a fenced lot behind a diesel shop in Harlan. Told them I'd be back in a few days. I haven't returned, but I still get updates on the shop's cameras' motion triggers in the early hours. Nothing shows up, just the trailer, shaking a little. Sometimes a new scratch on the back. Always 5 marks, neat, deliberate. And yesterday, I got a package in the mail. No return address. Just a single item inside the glove I'd worn that night I wiped off the resin. It was folded neatly in a Ziploc. Inside the fingers, small pebbles, like something had crawled inside it, nested there. I still don't know what was in those drums, but whatever it was, it's not gone. It's just waiting for another route. Another driver, and I'll be damned if it's ever me again. I was halfway through my shift heading out of Elkins, West Virginia. When the call came through, an old roadside relic needed a special pickup. They said it was a oddly carved statue, abandoned at a rest stop in the Monongahela National Forest. And I, Jesse Harper, 32, flatbed driver, was the closest one available. I don't usually run these kinds of jobs, relics. Odd antiques, but the pay was good. The kind that changed your week. So there I was, winding through switchbacks in the dark, heading to a place I'd avoided since I was a kid. The rest area was little more than a cracked asphalt circle, flanked by dense pines and a single, flickering lamp post. There was no sign of a building anymore, just broken benches and tired trash cans. That's when I saw it, the statue. A tall figure carved from pale stone, faceless and smooth, standing alone just beyond the tree line. Its head was tilted down, shoulders narrowed, arms missing or never carved. No features, just rotted limbs pointed forward like it held secrets it couldn't speak. The closer I got on foot, the heavier the air felt. like the forest was leaning in to listen. I didn't look for a label or origin story. The paperwork just said artifact. They warned me it was delicate, fragile. So I laid it carefully on the flatbed, shielding it with a tarp, though I didn't cover its face. Oddly, even though the air was still. As I lifted the tarp's edge to check its base, I thought I saw something shift. A shaking. Just the slightest tremor through the stone. I paused. It was foolish to think it moved that stones don't breathe. But in that half-light between the trees and the headlight's glare, I didn't feel alone. I climbed back in the cab, strapped in, and snapped the tarp shut behind the statue. Started the engine. I don't know what I expected applause. A sigh instead. The air turned frigid inside the cab. Breath steaming white before me. I shivered, flicked on the heat. The radio crackled, even though I hadn't touched it. Just a hiss. Then a whisper. "Why can't you see me?" I nearly swerved. I stopped the truck at the next turnout and went back to check. No footprints, no cracks on the statue, nothing. A blank stone face staring into nothing. I shoved away the chill, slammed the door, and got the heck out of there. But that voice didn't stop. In the mirror that night, sometimes I caught the statue's outline behind me even when I knew it wasn't there. Always head tilted, shoulders hunched, waiting. And every time I blinked, I felt sure the face had shifted just a fraction, like it was trying to find a voice. I delivered it to a place just off Route 219, some antique dealer's warehouse that looked more like a barn swallowed by vines. No lights, no one waiting. The drop-off instructions told me to leave it under the awning by the north wall, sign a receipt, and leave. I did what they said. Didn't stay to ask questions. But as I lowered the ramp and rolled the dolly back, I looked at it one last time. The statue was no longer faceless. It wasn't a full face, not eyes, not mouth, just the faint outline of features, like someone had pressed fingers into clay. Shallow indents where cheeks should be, the ghost of a nose, something that hinted at a grin. I stared, heart thudding, swearing under my breath. I hadn't imagined it. I knew what I'd picked up. That stone had been smooth, blank. I didn't sign anything, just drove away. But I wasn't alone in the cab anymore. It didn't speak again, not like that night on the road. No words, just a pressure like someone leaning forward in the sleeper, watching the back of my neck. At first, I thought it was just paranoia. I told myself it was the long hours, the weird job. But then the truck started changing. My side mirror would tilt on its own. My dome light flickered even after I replaced the bulb. And one morning, after sleeping in the cab at a truck stop, I found stone dust on the floor mat. Fine, gray, like something had shed. I tried to forget. Dropped the route. Blocked the warehouse's number. But 2 weeks later, a crate showed up outside my apartment. No return address, no labels, just my name carved into the wood. Deep and deliberate. I didn't open it. I burned it in the empty field behind the lot. It cracked like bone and smelled like wet stone and mold. Still, I watched the smoke until sunrise, but the dreams kept coming, always the same. I'm standing in the woods near the rest stop. The statue is there, but not still. It shifts, twitches, and just before I wake up, it raises one hand, not carved, not stone, but pale, soft skin. and I see its face clearly. It's mine. I don't drive nights anymore. I don't pick up unscheduled loads. But sometimes, when I pass through certain counties, I'll catch something in the trees tall, still, watching. And when I check the mirrors, the glass fogs slightly, like something is trying to press through. Whatever it was I moved that night, it remembers me. And it's still learning how to look back. There were 4 of us in the convoy that night. We'd been contracted to haul heavy equipment to a remote mining site up near Pine Mountain, Kentucky. The gear was too large for a single flatbed, so they split the load and sent us out together. 2 trucks up front, 2 bringing up the rear. I was third in line, just behind my friend Nolan, who'd been driving longer than any of us. We'd all known each other for years, local guys from across Southwest Virginia and Eastern Kentucky, picking up contract work when we could. It wasn't a job we expected to go wrong. But then again, it never is until it does. The first part of the route was uneventful. The roads were narrow and rough, but manageable. We stayed in radio contact, cracked jokes, cursed the potholes, and counted down the miles. The last turnoff was a service road just past a hollow south of Elkhorn City, barely a track, really, winding through dark pines and climbing fast. Nolan's voice came through the radio just as we started up it. "Don't like this stretch," he said. "Feels wrong." We all laughed. Nolan was the last guy to get spooked by anything. We thought he was messing around. 10 minutes later, he was gone. One moment I was watching his taillights flicker ahead of me through the trees. The next, I rounded a tight curve and nothing. No lights, no dust, no sound, just empty road. I keyed the radio. "Nolan, you copy silence." I tried again, a voice cracking a little this time. Still nothing. The lead truck, driven by a guy named Willis, slowed up ahead and asked what was going on. I told him Nolan had vanished. Willis laughed nervously, said maybe the guy pulled off to piss, but there was nowhere to pull off. No shoulder, just rock wall on one side and a drop on the other. We stopped. All 3 trucks got out, walked the stretch, flashlights in hand, boots crunching gravel. No skid marks, no broken branches, no sign a truck had ever been there, let alone disappeared. Just wind, cold and high, whistling through the trees like a warning. After a while, Willis muttered, "He's messing with us." Gotta be. But even he didn't sound convinced. We waited an hour before turning back. There was no signal out there. So we drove downhill until we got a single bar and called the state police. They sent someone out the next day. A full search team, drones, helicopters, nothing. Not a single scrap of metal. Not a single tire tread. Like the road had swallowed him whole. It's been a year now. The mining company pulled out of the site, claimed the terrain was unstable. But every now and then, when I'm driving late, I flip on the old radio just to listen. And sometimes, just sometimes, I hear a voice crackle through the static. It's faint, garbled, but I swear it's Nolan, and he's still trying to answer me. I didn't believe it the first time. I thought it was my mind playing tricks. Radio static can sound like anything when you're tired enough. But a week after Nolan vanished, I heard it again, late night, halfway between Grundy and Logan, just as the fog started creeping in. A voice, low and broken, cutting through the static like someone speaking through layers of water, "Will, is me." Then nothing. Silence so heavy it made my chest tighten. After that, I kept the CB on, even when I didn't need it. I'd drive with the volume low, just enough to catch the hiss beneath the noise. Other drivers thought I was cracking up. Maybe I was. But I kept thinking about that stretch of road, how it just took him. No sign, no sound. Like a hand reaching out from the trees and pulling him into a place the rest of us couldn't follow. I started digging through maps, old route logs, anything I could find on that mountain pass. What I found didn't make things better. That service road wasn't listed on any current state documents. In fact, the last official record of it being used was from 1974, back when the mine was still active. There'd been a landslide that year. 2 trucks were lost, bodies never recovered. The company blamed it on poor mapping, weather, driver error. But in the notes, someone had scribbled a line that stuck with me. They were on the road. Then they weren't. I talked to Willis and the other guy in our convoy. Terry. Neither wanted to say much. Terry quit driving 3 weeks after it happened. Sold his truck. Said he had a dream where he was stuck behind Nolan's rig. But when he opened the door, there was no cab, just a long hallway of trees stretching out forever. Willis said he sometimes woke up to static playing from his phone, even when it was turned off. I thought about reaching out to Nolan's family. But what could I say? Your son disappeared into thin air, and now I hear him going through broken radio signals. Then came the envelope. No return address, just my name, typed on a plain white label. Inside was a single photo, an old Polaroid, faded and bent. It showed a gravel road twisting up into pines, thick with shadow. At the very edge of the frame, almost hidden in the blur, was a taillight. I recognized it. Same shape, same scratch along the bottom panel. It was Nolan's truck. But the forest behind it didn't look right. The trees were wrong, too thin, too close together, like ribs pressing inward, like a throat, swallowing light. The next night, I drove the route again, alone, against everything I promised myself. I went back to that curve, stopped the truck, killed the engine, left the lights on. The forest was silent. Too silent, no wind, no insects, just air thick as mud. I turned on the radio. Static. Then the hum. Then that voice again. Louder now, more distinct, third in line. Still behind me. I didn't answer, couldn't. Because in that moment, looking into the mirror, I saw a single headlight glinting behind me, low, steady, silent. And when I turned around, there was nothing but trees. Nolan's never come back. But that light still follows me sometimes, on quiet roads deep in the hills, just far enough back to make me doubt, just close enough to make me remember. It started with a woman and a red glass jar. I was parked outside a gas station near Grundy, Virginia, just stretching my legs, when she approached me, mid-60s, wiry build, with a crocheted shawl over her shoulders despite the heat. She had the kind of stillness that made you notice her, even in a crowd, though there wasn't one. Just her and that jar, cradled in her arms, like it held something fragile. "Are you heading west?" she asked, voice soft but not timid. I nodded, cautious. "Will you take this as far as it needs to go?" she added, offering the jar without waiting for an answer. I should have said no. Should have walked away, made some excuse. But there was something in her tone, something final, like she'd already seen this moment play out and was just waiting for me to step into it. I took the jar. It was warm, heavier than it looked. Sealed with a cork wrapped in wax, the glass tinted dark crimson so you couldn't see what was inside. She didn't explain, just smiled faintly and turned, walking away across the lot and disappearing between the trees behind the station like she'd never been there at all. I set the jar in the passenger seat, half forgot about it until nightfall. My route took me through Jefferson National Forest, down winding mountain roads I'd driven a dozen times before. But something felt different this trip, like the road had grown narrower, like the trees leaned in closer than they used to. Around midnight, just past a pull-off near a dried-up creek, I started hearing this faint clinking sound like glass tapping from inside the cab. At first, I thought it was the jar shifting with the turns. I reached over, steadied it, but the tapping didn't stop. If anything, it grew more deliberate, like something inside was trying to get out. I pulled over and killed the engine. The silence that followed was immediate and deep, like the forest had swallowed all sound. I sat there, breathing slow, one hand on the wheel, the other still on the jar. Then it moved, just a little. But I felt it like something shifting inside, coiling or turning. I leaned in to listen, heard what I thought was a whisper. Just one word. Home. I didn't sleep that night. Drove straight through until I reached a motel in Blacksburg and shoved the jar into the footwell, covering it with my jacket. I didn't want to touch it again, didn't want to look at it. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw red. Not blood exactly, more like thick liquid moving behind the glass. And always, behind it, a face. I tried to get rid of it. First at the motel, left it in the trash bin behind the building and drove off. But 30 miles down the highway, I stopped for gas, and there it was, sitting upright on the passenger seat, still wrapped in my jacket. I swear I hadn't even left the door unlocked. I nearly wrecked backing out of the lot, heart hammering like I was being chased. But no one was there, just that jar, sitting like it had always been mine. By the time I reached Marion, I was losing sleep. I kept hearing it at night, the tapping, the faint scrape of glass on vinyl. I stopped turning on the radio because I didn't want to miss anything. Sometimes the jar would fog up from the inside, like it was breathing. Once, at a rest stop, I looked down and saw condensation forming a shape handprint. Maybe, or something close. I rubbed it off. It came back 5 minutes later. I called my cousin, Ellie, who's into old mountain lore, hoping for a joke, maybe a half-baked explanation to laugh at. She didn't laugh. She just asked what the jar looked like and where I got it. When I told her, she went quiet for a long time, then said, "You didn't open it, right?" I told her no. She made me swear not to. Said there were stories in her county about women who passed on jars sealed with wax and blood. Containers. She called them, not for things, for people. That night, parked behind a diner in Atkins, I heard the whisper again, louder this time, clearer, almost home. I turned the jar toward me, and the light from the street lamp hit it just right, revealing something I hadn't noticed before. A silhouette inside, barely visible, thin, human-shaped, pressed to the glass, as if watching me from the other side. My hands went numb. I didn't sleep, just sat there, engine running, every light in the cab turned on. At dawn, I made it back to the gas station where she'd given me the jar. I thought maybe if I returned it, it would stop. But the station was closed, boarded up like it had been for years. I stood there staring through the glass door at empty shelves and dust. No sign she'd ever been there. No record of the station ever being open in the past decade. The woods behind it looked darker now, denser. I took the jar and walked to the tree line. I don't remember exactly where I left it, somewhere in the underbrush, half buried beneath roots and leaves. I turned and didn't look back. Since then, I haven't heard the whisper, haven't seen the jar. But every now and then, I get this pressure in my ears, like something trying to speak through static. And in mirrors, in windows at night, I'll catch a shape. Always still, always watching, waiting to come home. Most drivers don't even notice it. Just a stretch of old rail line off Route 36 north of Johnson City, with a collapsed trestle bridge and a tunnel barely visible through the overgrowth. You could pass it 100 times and never think twice. But I always did, ever since my first long haul through the area. I felt it, like the tunnel pulled at something just beneath the skin. The turnoff dipped a little too fast, the shadows held a little too long, and the air got heavier the moment your tires touched that cracked blacktop. That whole stretch of road felt like it didn't want to be remembered. I avoided it for years. Took the longer route through Elizabethton. Added 40 minutes to my run every time, just to steer clear. Even when fuel costs spiked and dispatch gave me grief for wasting diesel, I stuck to my gut. It wasn't fear exactly. It was something colder, quieter. Like hearing a name you don't remember saying out loud, or walking into a room and forgetting why you came in only deeper. But that night, I didn't have a choice. A landslide had knocked out the back road near the reservoir, and a construction blocked the pass just past Happy Valley. My only option was the tunnel. I told myself it was fine. I'd hit it around 3:30 a.m. Quick and quiet. In and out. No stopping. I'd done scarier roads, riskier turns, steeper cliffs. I had a load of fiberglass conduit strapped down tight, and nothing weird on the manifest. Just a normal run until the tunnel. The moment I turned off the main road, everything changed. The air dropped 10 degrees, and the trees on either side thickened, branches sagging low like they were listening. I slowed to 30, then 25. The tunnel came into view around a bend, barely lit by my high beams, an old stone arch nearly swallowed by ivy and time. It should have looked abandoned. It didn't. It looked waiting. The second my front wheels hit the entrance, the radio flicked on by itself. A quick burst of static, loud and sharp. Then silence. My headlights seemed to dim, though I knew they hadn't. The light just didn't carry far anymore. The tunnel curved slightly left, blocking the exit from view, and everything ahead turned gray, sightless, depthless. My mirrors reflected nothing. Not the trailer, not the road, just black. Then the windshield fogged. Not the whole thing, just one slow breath across the passenger side glass. As if someone leaned close and exhaled. I stared at it, waiting for it to vanish. It didn't. Instead, a second breath formed below it, closer to the dash. I wiped it with the back of my hand, heart knocking around in my chest like it wanted out. That's when I heard it. A soft tap from the sleeper behind me, then another, then breathing. I didn't speak, didn't move, just stared forward. eyes locked on the faint curve of the tunnel ahead, willing the exit to appear. The tapping stopped, but the breathing didn't. It was steady, shallow, like someone trying not to be heard. I gripped the wheel so tight my fingers went numb. The thought of turning around, of looking behind me, felt like a dare. Like whatever was back there wanted to be seen. And I knew, deep down, if I gave it that moment, I wouldn't walk away the same. I hit the gas. Not a stomp, not a panic push, just enough to pull the rig through without skidding. The engine groaned. The tunnel walls echoed it back like they were breathing too. As I rounded the curve, the headlights finally caught a glimpse of open air ahead. The fog on the windshield cleared, as if something had lifted away. I made it out in one piece. But I didn't stop. Not even once I was back on open road. I drove straight through to Kingsport, parked at a truck stop near a diner I knew, and sat there in the cab until the sun came up. I checked the sleeper compartment in full daylight. Nothing unusual, just my blanket. An empty thermos. The old paperback I'd left in there weeks ago. But when I checked the inside of the side window, there was a smear. Long, greasy, about the size and shape of a human hand. It hadn't been there when I cleaned the glass the night before. I tried to tell myself it was just grime. Maybe something I missed during a previous run. But that lie didn't hold for long. Because 2 days later, I got a voicemail from a number I didn't recognize. All static, except at the end. A voice, faint, low, like it was whispering from another room. Next time. Look. Then a click. I don't drive past Johnson City anymore. I reroute everything, no matter the cost. But sometimes, on long nights when the fog rolls in and the trees close around the road, the CB crackles. Not with voices. Not really. Just breath, measured and patient. And in the rear view, something shifts, just out of focus, just close enough to see if I turn around. But I don't. Not ever again. Don't stop. Not if you hear knocking, the old man said. Eyes never leaving the road beyond the pumps. He stood hunched beside a rusty red Ford with out-of-state plates. Hands buried in a long gray coat that looked too thin for the wind blowing through the Jefferson Hills. It was just after sundown. The gas station empty, except for us. A few moths batting around the overhead lights. I'd just topped off my rig and was scribbling in my logbook when he walked up beside the cab. Didn't ask for anything. Just stared ahead and said it again quieter this time. But firmer. Not even if it sounds like a kid. Especially not then. I gave him a half laugh. The kind you use when you're not sure if someone's joking or trying to scare you. He didn't smile. Just tipped his chin at my truck and said, "You're headed west, ain't you?" I nodded. He grunted, stepped back, and disappeared behind the pumps without another word. I didn't see his truck leave. Didn't see him again at all. Like he'd just stepped out of the road and into the trees. I left the station around 9. Headed toward Knoxville with a load of ceramic tile in the trailer and a bottle of cheap coffee keeping warm under the dash. It was a quiet haul, no way stations, no cities. Just Route 460 winding through the southern edges of Jefferson National Forest. The night was thick, air cool, sky moonless. The kind of night that stretches the road longer than it is. Trees leaned over the shoulders like watchers, their branches sweeping just low enough to scratch the top of the trailer now and then. I had the radio off. No music, no chatter, Just the hum of the engine and the occasional creak of the frame on the turns. Somewhere past midnight. It started. The first knock was so soft, I thought it might have been road noise. A tap-tap, like gravel pinging the side of the cab. I glanced at the mirrors, nothing behind me but 2 red dots of taillight bouncing in the black. Then again, knock, knock, clearer now. 2 deliberate hits, right beneath the passenger side door. I slowed slightly, checked the mirrors again. Still nothing, no shoulders out here, no street lights, just endless forest pressing in. I told myself it was a branch, maybe a loose strap flapping in the wind. Still, I pulled off at the next flat stretch, a gravel turnout, with just enough space to stop without tipping over. I grabbed the flashlight and circled the rig, checking the trailer latches, the tires, the undercarriage. Everything looked fine. No branches stuck, no marks. No reason for the noise. I was just about to climb back in when I heard it again. Knock, knock, but this time from inside the cab. My heart dropped. The sound came from the sleeper compartment. Quick, solid, like a knuckle against sheet metal. I didn't move for a few seconds, just stood there with one hand on the door handle, staring into the night like it might explain what was happening. Then I yanked open the door, jumped in, and slammed it shut behind me. The cab was empty. Just the thermos, my jacket, the flat hum of the vents. Nothing unusual. I sat there, breathing hard, watching the rear view for movement, listening to the wind whistle low through the cracks in the windows. Then came the knocking again, louder this time. Knock, knock, from the sleeper, followed by something worse. A voice, low, small, right behind my seat, let me in. I didn't turn around. Everything in my body screamed at me to move, to look, to do something, but I stayed frozen. The voice hadn't been angry or loud. That's what chilled me most. It sounded polite, patient, like whoever or whatever was behind me didn't need to force their way in. They were just waiting for me to give permission. And somehow, deep down, I knew if I even made eye contact, that would be enough. I slammed the truck into gear and pulled back onto the road, tires spitting gravel behind me. My hands shook on the wheel. I drove faster than I should have on a road like that, tight curves, steep drop-offs, no guardrails, but I couldn't stay still. I didn't dare stop again. The knocking started again after a mile, louder, faster. It traveled from the back of the sleeper to the side window, then up along the cab wall like something was crawling outside the truck, tapping as it went. Only it wasn't outside. When I hit along straight away, I checked the mirror. I knew I shouldn't, but I did, just once. The sleeper was dark, but I could make out a shape, small, hunched, head tilted sideways like it couldn't quite fit the way it wanted to. No features, no light hitting it, just darkness pulled into a human shape. I blinked, and it was gone. But the knocking didn't stop. Now it came from under the floor, from the dash, from inside the vents. I passed through a small mountain town just before 4 a.m. One blinking traffic light, a closed diner, a church with its front door open like it had been waiting. I almost pulled over. Almost. But as I slowed down, a handprint appeared on the inside of the windshield. Small, pale, the fingers too long, like they'd been stretched. Then another, and another. I floored it out of there. By dawn, I made it to Knoxville. I backed the truck into the depot lot, left the keys in the ignition, and walked away. Didn't even grab my wallet. I called dispatch from a payphone and told them the load was delivered. Told them the rig was theirs now. Then I got on a bus headed east and haven't driven a long haul since. Sometimes, late at night, I'll still hear it. That soft, polite knock. Knock, like it's waiting for me to change my mind. And every now and then, when I park too close to the woods or near a dark window, I'll see something watching. Just a shape. Small, patient, still asking to be let in. And still I don't answer.